My fiancée cheated on me with a coworker and got pregnant, then tried to pass the baby off as mine. She even faked ultrasound appointments and swore she'd never betray me. But when the DNA test results came back, the truth shattered her perfect image in front of everyone, and I walked away without regret. For 8 years, I thought my marriage was solid. My wife, Elena, and I had a comfortable home, steady jobs, and we were even discussing starting a family. It turns out I was living a delusion. This all began a few months ago, on a Saturday. I decided to finally clear out our spare room, which had become a storage area for unused items we couldn't part with. Elena was out, doing her usual errands or visiting friends, so I thought it was a good time to be productive. While sorting through the clutter, I came across an old hard drive I'd completely forgotten about. My curiosity piqued, I connected it to my laptop and began looking through the files. Most of it was innocent. Old photographs, vacation videos, random downloads from when we were less well off, and shared a computer. Then I spotted it. A folder titled Bachelorette Memories. To be clear, I wasn't deliberately searching, it was right there. Honestly, I assumed it would be amusing to see Elena's bachelorette party antics. I anticipated drunken karaoke, silly games, maybe a few suggestive jokes. What I found was entirely different. The first video appeared normal enough. Elena and her bridesmaids laughing, taking shots, and wearing those novelty bride-to-be crowns. But the second video had a completely different atmosphere. It started at a nightclub, with loud music and flashing lights. There was a male stripper, dressed as a firefighter, naturally, performing his routine. Elena wasn't just observing, though. She was all over him, dancing closely, touching him, essentially behaving as if she were auditioning for a raunchy reality show. I already felt sick, but then the video jumped to a hotel room. She was kissing him. No, she was passionately kissing him, as if her life depended on it. I paused the video, staring at the screen, completely frozen. My first thought was, this must be a prank. My second thought was, why on earth would she keep this? When Elena arrived home, I didn't even wait for her to remove her shoes. We need to talk, I stated, holding up the hard drive. She gave me her usual annoyed expression, the one she reserves for when I interrupt her social media scrolling. What now, Marcus? She sighed. I discovered some videos on this, I replied, attempting to keep my voice steady. Her expression remained unchanged. So what videos? Your bachelorette party, I said, looking directly into her eyes. Her face paled for a moment, then she rolled her eyes. Oh, for heaven's sake, Marcus, that was years ago. Why are you even bringing this up? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Elena, you were unfaithful to me with a stripper. I saw the video. She shrugged, as if I had just accused her of forgetting to do laundry. It was my bachelorette party. It's not a big deal. Everyone does it. I swear my jaw nearly dropped. Everyone does it? Are you actually trying to justify this? She crossed her arms and gave me that patronizing look she has mastered. You're overreacting. It's not like I had an affair. It was a one-night thing. I was intoxicated, and it was before we were even married. Let it go. Let it go. I repeated, my voice rising. You concealed this from me for 8 years, and you're telling me to let it go? She rolled her eyes again, as if I were being unreasonable. Marcus, it's not like I slept with the guy. It was just some fun. I didn't tell you because I knew you'd exaggerate it. And look, you're proving me right. I was stunned by her brazenness. Not only was she unrepentant, but she was acting as if I were the villain here. I trusted you, I said, my voice trembling. And you betrayed me. This isn't just some minor error, Elena. You lied to me for years. That's when she used her classic move, turning the tables. Oh, grow up. Marcus, you're acting like a child. It's been 8 years, and we've had a great life. Are you seriously going to ruin all that because of something foolish I did before we even said I do? I couldn't even look at her. I grabbed my keys and left. I didn't know where I was going. I just needed to get away from her. I ended up at a park, sitting on a bench like a movie cliché. I kept replaying her words in my head. It's not a big deal. Everyone does it. Let it go. Was I being irrational for feeling this way? Was I truly overreacting? No, I decided. I wasn't. Infidelity is infidelity, and the fact that she didn't even feel regret made it 10 times worse. When I returned home, she was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone as if nothing had occurred. Are you done with your little tantrum? She asked, without even looking up. I didn't respond. I just went to the bedroom and closed the door. That night, I slept on the couch. Since then, I haven't been able to look at her the same way. Every time she smiles, every time she touches me, all I can think about is that video and how she dismissed it as trivial. I don't know what will happen next, but one thing is certain. I'm not the same person who was laughing at old TikTok videos just a few hours before. My entire world had shattered. After discovering Elena's bachelorette escapade, I was a mess. Part of me wanted to simply end things right then and move on. But the other part, probably the one that had been married to her for 8 years, considered that perhaps we could salvage this. So, like a fool, I agreed to try marriage counseling. Elena suggested it, which I thought might indicate she was genuinely remorseful and willing to make an effort. Well, she wasn't, but at the time, I was desperate to preserve what we had. We began seeing Dr. Fields, an older therapist with a comforting, wise grandmotherly demeanor. She was calm and impartial, which is probably the only reason I didn't completely lose it during the sessions. I went in prepared to reveal everything, hoping we'd make some progress. The first session was a farce. Dr. Fields asked us to explain why we were there, and before I could even speak, Elena interjected. Well, she said with a faint sigh, Marcus has been really distant and angry lately. He keeps bringing up something that happened years ago, before we were even married, and it's been difficult to move forward. Excuse me? The nerve. She made it sound like I was losing my mind over nothing. When it was my turn, I didn't hold back. I told Dr. Fields exactly what I'd found, how Elena had concealed it for 8 years, and how I felt my trust in her was completely shattered. Elena didn't even look at me. She just sat there, rolling her eyes as if I were wasting her time. When Dr. Fields asked why she hadn't told me sooner, Elena shrugged and said, I didn't think it was a big deal. It was one night, and it didn't mean anything. Oh, fantastic. So my marriage was falling apart because of something that didn't mean anything. Things didn't improve after that. Every session felt like a repetitive cycle. I discussed my pain and my inability to trust her anymore, and Elena would roll her eyes or say something like, Marcus, you're blowing this way out of proportion. One time, I tried to express how foolish I felt for not realizing sooner. Instead of showing any sympathy, Elena laughed and said, well, maybe if you didn't go digging around on old hard drives, you wouldn't be so upset now. Seriously? That's what she said. And then there was her behavior outside of therapy. While I was agonizing over how to rebuild our relationship, Elena seemed completely unconcerned. She'd arrive home late from work or dinner with friends. Her excuse is always vague and incomplete. At first, I told myself I was just being paranoid. After all, I already mistrusted her, so perhaps I was overthinking things. But then I started noticing patterns. She'd get all dressed up for these supposed dinners, far more dressed up than she ever did when we went out. Heels, makeup, the works. When I'd inquire whom she was meeting, she'd always give some vague answer like, oh, just the girls. The girls didn't even seem to exist half the time. I'd check her social media, and there wouldn't be a single photo or post about these outings. No tags, no check-ins, nothing. One night, she came home late, almost midnight. I was sitting on the couch waiting for her, and when she walked in, she looked startled. Oh, she said, freezing in the doorway. You're still awake? Yeah, I replied. Where were you? She hesitated for a second, then shrugged. Just out with Chelsea. We got carried away talking. Chelsea, her best friend, is the type of person who posts every detail of her life on Instagram. If they'd been together, there would have been stories, posts, something. But when I checked, nothing. That's when the doubts began to creep in. Was she still being unfaithful? Was she fabricating these dinners and late nights at work? One night, I couldn't bear it anymore. I asked her directly if she was seeing someone else. Her response? A full-blown breakdown. How dare you? She yelled, tears streaming down her face. I've been trying so hard to make things right, and you have the nerve to accuse me of cheating. She stormed off to the bedroom, slamming the door behind her. But here's the thing. Her reaction didn't make me feel any better. If anything, it just made me more suspicious. The final breaking point came during one of our therapy sessions. Dr. Fields asked Elena if she felt she was doing everything she could to rebuild trust. I think I'm doing more than enough, Elena said, crossing her arms. Marcus just doesn't want to move on. He's stuck in the past, and nothing I do is ever going to be enough for him. It was like a slap in the face. I'd been going above and beyond to try and forgive her, to mend our marriage, and she had the audacity to act like I was the issue. After that session, I started tracking her late nights. I wasn't proud of it, but I felt like I needed evidence. I'd check her phone when she wasn't around, glance at her emails, even monitor her car's mileage. Sure enough, things didn't add up. She'd claimed she was going one place, but her mileage indicated she'd been somewhere completely different. She'd receive random texts from unrecognized numbers, and when I inquired about them, she'd dismiss it with a laugh, saying, "It's just work stuff, don't be paranoid." By this point, therapy seemed futile. Dr. Fields kept encouraging us to communicate openly and rebuild trust. But how do you rebuild trust when your wife is still being secretive? I started to feel foolish for even trying. Elena wasn't making any effort. She didn't care about fixing things. She didn't even care enough to cover her tracks. By the 7th month of therapy, I knew I couldn't continue. I stopped attending the sessions, and honestly, I think Elena was relieved. She stopped pretending to care and went right back to her old habits. I began seriously considering divorce. It wasn't an easy decision, and I struggled with it for weeks. 8 years of marriage isn't something you just walk away from without feeling like a failure. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I couldn't keep living like this. I deserved better than constant doubt, deception, and a wife who clearly didn't respect me or our marriage. What if I divorced my wife for that reason? I'm talking to Elena tonight about my decision, but it's been chaotic and things didn't go as planned. It's taken me a while to collect my thoughts. I just don't know what to do anymore. So, it was a typical Tuesday evening. I had just finished another awkward dinner where we barely exchanged words. Elena was on her phone, endlessly scrolling, as she always did, while I was trying to find the right moment to mention the D word. Suddenly, she put her phone down and said, "We need to talk." I froze. Usually, those words meant another argument about how I wasn't moving past the past. I sighed, bracing myself. What now? Instead of the usual lecture, she reached into her bag and slid something across the table. It took me a second to realize what it was, a pregnancy test. Positive. "We're having a baby," she said, looking at me as if she expected me to leap up and celebrate. I didn't. I just stared at the test, my mind racing. This should have been exciting, right? But now all I could think about was how much I didn't trust her, and whether the baby was even mine. "Are you certain?" I finally asked. "Yes, Marcus," she snapped, as if I were being idiotic. "I've taken 3 tests. They're all positive." I sat there, trying to figure out what to say. Was I supposed to be happy? Supportive? I felt completely numb. "Say something," she demanded, her tone shifting from expectant to annoyed. "I don't know what to say," I admitted. She rolled her eyes. "This is good news, Marcus. We've been trying for this." Yes, we had been trying for a baby, for a better relationship, for something to make us feel normal again. But things hadn't been normal for a long time. The timing felt completely off, and I couldn't shake this creeping suspicion that perhaps, just perhaps, this wasn't the blessing she was making it out to be. I've been trying to process the news. Elena acted as if the pregnancy had miraculously resolved everything, as if we were suddenly on solid ground again. She started discussing baby names and nursery ideas, pulling up Pinterest boards and making lists. Meanwhile, I was consumed by doubt. Every time she mentioned the baby, my mind drifted to unsettling places. What if it wasn't mine? What if all those late nights and vague excuses meant more than I'd allowed myself to believe? I hated thinking like that, but I couldn't stop. I tried to go along with it, mostly because I didn't know what else to do. I nodded at her ideas, accompanied her to a couple of doctor's appointments, and even pretended to care when she showed me ultrasound photos. But I couldn't shake the feeling that this was all wrong. Our relationship hadn't suddenly improved just because a baby was involved. If anything, the existing fractures were even more apparent now. We still didn't discuss anything meaningful. Every conversation was superficial, and even those felt forced. One night, as we sat on the couch, she showed me another ultrasound picture. "Look," she said, smiling, "that's our baby." I forced a smile and nodded, but inside, I felt like a fraud. I wanted to believe it, to feel excited, but all I could think was, is this really my baby? That's when I started reviewing the timeline in my head. The last time we had been intimate wasn't recent. Things between us had been cold for months. Even when we tried to reconnect, it felt more like going through the motions than anything genuine. If the baby was mine, the timing didn't make sense. By my calculations, she would have conceived at a time when we weren't even really communicating, let alone acting like a married couple. The thought made my stomach churn. I wanted to confront her, to ask her directly if there was something she wasn't telling me. But every time I got close to bringing it up, I couldn't. I couldn't put her under such stress while pregnant. After all, it's not the baby's fault. I started looking into paternity tests, not to act on it yet, but just to know my options. There are tests you can do during pregnancy, but they're expensive and require the mother's cooperation. I wasn't sure how Elena would react if I brought it up, and honestly, I wasn't ready for that confrontation. I decided to wait. If my suspicions were correct, I'd have proof when the baby was born. Until then, I'd play along and try to maintain peace. The day Caleb was born was surreal. It should have been a moment of joy, a new chapter in our lives. But for me, it felt like a chapter one was afraid to read, one filled with doubts and unanswered questions. Elena went into labor late at night, and I drove her to the hospital. She was in pain and snapped at me about everything. The way I was driving, how long it took to park, even the way I opened the hospital door. I didn't argue back. I told myself it was the stress and the labor talking, but deep down, I knew this tension wasn't new. The delivery went smoothly, and within a few hours, Caleb was here. A boy, perfect in every way, or so I wanted to believe. When the nurse handed him to me, I tried to release all my doubts. I looked down at his tiny face, and for a brief moment, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe everything could work out. Maybe this was the fresh start we needed. But that hope quickly faded as I looked closer. I couldn't help noticing that Caleb didn't resemble me at all. He had dark hair and a complexion that didn't match either mine or Elena's. I tried to dismiss it. Babies change, right? But the doubts I'd been carrying for months came rushing back. Still, I didn't say anything. Not yet. Elena was exhausted and fell asleep soon after the birth. I sat in the corner of the room, holding Caleb and staring at him. He was innocent in all of this, and yet he was at the center of everything I couldn't ignore. I'd already planned to get a paternity test, and now I knew I couldn't wait. The hospital offered discreet testing, and I requested it before we even left. I didn't tell Elena. I wasn't ready for that confrontation yet. I needed answers first. The first few weeks at home were a blur of sleepless nights and endless baby cries. Elena was fully immersed in her new role as a mom, posting pictures of Caleb on social media, soaking up the likes and comments. She acted like we were the happiest family in the world, as if everything was perfect now. Meanwhile, I was spiraling. I did everything I was supposed to do, changing diapers, bottle feeding Caleb, trying to be present, but I felt like I was living someone else's life. Every time I looked at him, I found myself searching for something that connected him to me. I wanted to find some resemblance, some trait that said, "This is your son." But I couldn't. Elena didn't seem to notice my hesitation, or perhaps she just didn't care. She was too busy basking in the attention from friends and family. Whenever I brought up how I was feeling, she'd dismiss it. "You're just overwhelmed," she'd say, as if my doubts were nothing more than new dad jitters. 2 weeks after Caleb was born, the paternity test results arrived. I'd been dreading that email, but when it finally came, I opened it immediately. The words jumped out at me. Probability of paternity, 0%. I stared at the screen, my hands shaking. I'd prepared myself for this possibility, but seeing it spelled out so clearly was something else entirely. Caleb wasn't mine. All the doubts I'd had over the past year suddenly felt justified. The late nights, the vague excuses, the timing, it all made sense now. Elena had been lying to me from the moment she found out she was pregnant. I sat in my car, parked a block away from our house, trying to figure out what to do next. I thought about Caleb, about the moments we'd already shared, and it broke my heart. He wasn't to blame for any of this. He was just a baby caught in the middle of a mess he didn't create. But Elena, she had some explaining to do. That night, after Caleb fell asleep, I confronted her. "We need to talk," I said, my voice colder than I intended. She looked up from her phone, frowning. "What now?" I took a deep breath and pulled up the paternity test results on my phone. "I got a paternity test," I said, handing it to her. Her face went pale as she read it. "You tested Caleb without telling me," she said, her voice shaking with anger. "Yes," I replied, my voice steady. "I needed to know the truth." She stammered, her eyes darting around the room as if looking for an escape. "Marcus, I can explain." "Explain what?" I snapped. "That you've been lying to me for months? That you let me believe this baby was mine when you knew he wasn't?" She started crying, the kind of tears that once would have made me want to comfort her. "Not anymore. It was a mistake," she said through her sobs. "I didn't mean for it to happen. It was just one night, and I didn't know how to tell you." "Who's the father?" I asked, my voice sharp. "It doesn't matter," she said, shaking her head. "It matters to me," I said. "It matters to Caleb." She finally admitted it was someone she worked with, someone she'd been seeing during the worst months of our marriage, while we were supposed to be rebuilding trust. Her excuses came flooding out. She said she felt neglected, that she made a mistake, that she thought I'd never find out. But none of it mattered. Over the next few days, I met with a lawyer to finalize the divorce papers. I was done. The deception, the betrayal, the sense of entitlement. There was no recovering from this. The divorce was going to be complicated, that much was clear, but I was ready to fight for what was fair and, ultimately, for what was right for me. I presented her with the papers one evening after Caleb had fallen asleep. I sat across from her at the kitchen table, the documents neatly stacked in front of her. "This is it, Elena," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "We're done. I can't stay in this marriage." She picked up the papers and started flipping through them, her expression unreadable. But when she reached the section about finances, her face twisted into anger. "You're seriously leaving me with nothing?" she snapped, slamming the papers down. I frowned. "You're not entitled to anything, Elena. Caleb isn't my child, and you lied to me for months. I don't owe you a dime." Her eyes narrowed. "You've been acting like Caleb's father this whole time. You can't just walk away now. What about child support? What about all the sacrifices I've made for this family?" That was rich, considering she'd spent most of her time scrolling through social media and pretending to be the perfect mom for likes. "Elena, I said, my voice steady but firm. You created this mess, not me. You lied, you cheated, and you let me believe Caleb was mine. I've done more for him in the past few weeks than his real father probably ever will. But that doesn't mean you get to deplete my bank account. She crossed her arms, her jaw tightening. You think a judge is going to see it that way? I've been a stay-at-home mom for weeks now because of Caleb. I gave up my career for this family. The following few weeks were a whirlwind of legal back and forth. Elena wasn't going to back down without a fight, and she made that abundantly clear. She hired a lawyer who clearly specialized in aggressive tactics, and suddenly, I was bombarded with all sorts of demands. She wanted spousal support. She wanted me to cover Caleb's expenses. She even tried to argue that I should be responsible for a portion of her medical bills from the pregnancy. Her lawyer's reasoning: Mr. Marcus acted as the father during the pregnancy and birth, and it is in the child's best interest for him to continue supporting the household. It was ridiculous. My lawyer, bless her no-nonsense attitude, wasn't tolerating any of it. We'll challenge this, she told me during one of our meetings. You've been deceived, and there's no legal basis for her claims. Still, the process was exhausting. Every time I thought we'd made progress, Elena found a new way to complicate things. She'd introduced last-minute demands, refused to cooperate during negotiations, and even tried to portray me as the villain for abandoning her and Caleb. One day, during one of our court-mandated mediation sessions, Elena truly revealed her true colors. We were sitting across from each other in a small conference room with our lawyers mediating. She was dressed as if attending a gala, hair and makeup meticulously done, probably hoping to play the poor, innocent wife card. I just don't understand how you can be so heartless, she said, her voice dripping with feigned emotion. After everything we've been through, you're just walking away and leaving me and Caleb with nothing. I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to remain calm. Elena, you lied to me for months. Caleb isn't my child. You don't get to act like the victim here. She scoffed. You've been acting like his father. You think you can just flip a switch and walk away? Yes, I said firmly. Because that's what happens when you lie to someone about something as important as paternity. Her lawyer tried to intervene, discussing emotional bonds and continuity of care, but my lawyer quickly shut it down. Your client has no legal grounds to demand support for a child who is not my client's, she said, her voice sharp. Furthermore, Mrs. Elena knowingly misrepresented the situation, which could constitute fraud. Shall we pursue that angle instead? Elena's face turned red, and for once, she didn't have a quick retort. The turning point came when the court ordered her to disclose the identity of Caleb's biological father. She'd been avoiding the topic for weeks, insisting it wasn't relevant, but the judge didn't accept it. When she finally named him, a coworker she'd been seeing during our difficult period, it was like the final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. Her credibility took a massive hit, and any sympathy the court might have had for her vanished. The judge ruled that I had no obligation to Caleb or Elena, financially or otherwise. My lawyer even managed to block her attempt to get spousal support, arguing that her actions had directly led to the breakdown of the marriage. When the final ruling came in, I felt an overwhelming sense of relief. Elena's demands had been denied, and I was officially free. Elena, on the other hand, was furious. She stormed out of the courtroom, muttering about how unfair it all was, how she deserved better. But for once, her sense of entitlement didn't get her what she wanted. A lot has happened since I finalized my divorce from Elena. After the divorce, I moved out of the house and into a small but comfortable apartment across town. At first, it was strange adjusting to life on my own, but honestly, it felt good. No more constant tension, no more pretending everything was fine. It was just me, my space, and a fresh start. I immersed myself in work and resumed going to the gym, something I hadn't done in years. It turns out physical activity truly helps clear your mind. I even picked up some hobbies I'd neglected during my marriage, like hiking and photography. Friends who had distanced themselves during my marriage, probably because of Elena, started reaching out again. It was pleasant to reconnect with people and feel like myself for the first time in years. Elena, on the other hand, wasn't doing so well. A mutual friend informed me that Caleb's biological father completely disappeared after the court ordered her to reveal his identity. Apparently, the guy wanted nothing to do with her or the baby, and he even transferred to another office to avoid her. Very classy. With no real support system, Elena was left struggling. Her parents, who had initially supported her during the divorce, were furious when they discovered she'd lied to me about Caleb's paternity. They reduced their financial assistance, forcing her to face the consequences of her actions for the first time. Elena attempted to maintain a brave face for social media, of course, with many posts about being a strong, independent woman and a loving single mom. But anyone who knew her could tell she was struggling. She tried to get back in touch with me. She called me one evening, her voice shaky. Marcus, I've been thinking a lot, and I feel like we should talk. I didn't even let her finish. There's nothing to discuss, Elena, I said. She sighed dramatically, as if she were the victim. I know I made a mistake, but we had something real. Don't you miss what we had? I almost laughed. What we had was built on lies, Elena. I've moved on, and you need to do the same. She started crying, but I wasn't falling for it this time. I told her I wished her the best, and hung up. A few weeks later, she appeared at my apartment. I have no idea how she found out where I lived, probably through a mutual friend or something. She was standing at my door, holding Caleb, looking tired and desperate. Can we talk? She asked. I didn't want to create a scene, so I let her in. She sat on my couch, bouncing Caleb on her knee, and began her little speech about how she'd changed and how we could make things work for Caleb's sake. Marcus, I know I hurt you, but Caleb needs a father figure, she said, tears welling up in her eyes. You've always been so good to him. I stared at her, barely able to believe what I was hearing. Elena, Caleb has a father. It's not me, and you don't get to use him as a way to manipulate me into coming back. She looked at me as if I had just slapped her. You're really going to abandon him? I'm not abandoning him, I said. I'm turning my back on you. She left after that, but not without another dramatic round of tears and guilt tripping. She'd send me long texts about how much she missed me, how Caleb needed me, how we could start fresh. I ignored most of them. When she wasn't trying to guilt me, she was trying to appeal to my sympathy. She'd talk about how difficult it was being a single mom, how the bills were accumulating, how lonely she was. Part of me felt bad for her. Caleb didn't ask for any of this, after all. But I wasn't about to let her drag me back into her mess. I felt a sense of compassion for her, honestly. She'd been so self-entitled during our marriage, so convinced she could get away with anything, and now she was left with nothing but her regrets. Caleb, as much as I cared for him during those first few weeks, wasn't my responsibility. I hope Elena figures things out for his sake, but I'm done being her safety net. Looking back, I'm proud of myself for walking away. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when I doubted if I was doing the right thing. But now, seeing where I am and where Elena is, I know I made the right choice. If Elena's downfall taught me anything, it's that you can't let someone else's lies and manipulation define your life. So yes, things are looking up for me. As for Elena, well, she's still trying to figure out how to clean up the mess she created. I wish her luck. She's going to need it.